Alrighty, welcome to the Hoggin the Mic podcast. I'm here with my college pastor, Luke Harper. He is, like I said, the college pastor here at Cross Church for C3. I've known him for 2.5 years or so.
Yeah.
I'll kind of let him introduce himself a little bit further, kind of, tell us where you're from, stuff like that, anything that you think is important.
Yeah, so I'm Luke. I'm married, been married for 9 years to my wife Kelsey. We've got 2 girls, Layla and Rory Kate. Been in Arkansas for the last 9 years or so, 8 or 9 years. It seems like, I kind of lose track. But we grew up in Tennessee, kind of all around Tennessee, but was actually born in Dallas.
Okay,
So,
really?
And then my hometown, weirdly, is also Baton Rouge. So it's kind of a weird, all my family lives in Baton Rouge, born in Dallas, grew up in Tennessee, lived here. But
how did that, why did you move around as much as you did?
So basically, both my parents are from Baton Rouge. Their whole family lives down there. They're like the only people who left.
Okay.
Like the family.
Gotcha.
So my parents moved to Dallas, and that's when I was born. My dad went to school in Dallas, and so that's what brought them there. And then he got a job in Nashville, which brought us to Nashville, and that's where I kind of grew up.
Okay.
Until we graduated high school, and then the rest is history.
Gotcha. So you went to Boyce College, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? What brought you there?
Yeah. So basically, my wife was a tennis player in college. So she went to Lee University. And so she started playing tennis there, and I was really thinking, all right, I'm just going to follow her to school.
Gotcha.
Kind of felt like, marriage is in the sights, here we go. We were dating in high school and stuff. And my dad really insisted. He had set up a tour for me at Boyce, and he told me I couldn't cancel.
Okay.
So I was like, well, Dad, I don't want to go there. And long story short, we had that tour, and it just was pretty clear. I knew it was where God wanted me to be, and that also really fast-tracked a lot of my heart for ministry and pastoring and those things too, is being there and having the experiences I had there. So the Lord definitely went before me in that for sure. So
was that something that you knew you wanted to go into, ministry, and because it was, I looked on your Cross Church page, it was biblical and theological studies or something?
Yeah.
Was that something that you knew you wanted to go into going into it, or did you figure that out while you were there?
Yeah, so I was called to ministry in 7th grade.
Okay.
But I think the call to ministry in 7th grade was not near as clear as what it is today, obviously. In 7th grade, I knew I had left a sermon, and I just heard I don't even remember anything that guy said.
Okay.
But I do remember leaving feeling like I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to help, build the church.
Yeah.
And then kind of my youth pastors were my heroes, so I kind of thought I'd just be a youth pastor.
Okay.
That was kind of based on the people that had been in my life from that point and throughout high school. But then really going into school, I just had a passion to be a part of a youth ministry. That was really what I wanted to do.
Gotcha.
And so that I went to school there kind of anticipating to be trained to be a student pastor.
Okay. Gotcha. So did you choose college ministry, did that just kind of happen, or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, college ministry chose me in some ways.
Yeah.
So I was here doing student ministry before this.
Okay.
I've been in C3 for the last 5 years. But really, our previous college pastor left to pastor a church in Oklahoma.
Gotcha.
And so Pastor Nick here at Cross Church took me to lunch at Smitty's Garage.
I went there for my birthday.
There you go, man.
2 years ago.
So a lot of just great conversations happen at Smitty's Garage, I guess. So he asked me to pray about stepping into this.
Gotcha.
And that was not really something I had ever thought of. But what start with some nervousness of figuring out, do I really want to do this, and is the Lord really in this, turned into something I'm just crazy grateful for.
Gotcha.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. What brought you here to Arkansas from Tennessee?
Cross Church.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the story of that is kind of wild. So I was a middle school pastor in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And I was doing youth ministry there, and we did this event where we had all the local sports teams from all over the city come.
Okay.
And so we had this guy that I knew, his name's Chris Lovell, come in and speak at an event that we did there. And me and him had never, we were always, like, I knew of him. I don't think he ever knew of me.
Okay.
But I took him to Chili's after the event was over.
Okay.
And just talked to him for a couple of hours and picked his brain on ministry and those types of things. And then he flew back to Texas, and I never thought anything of it.
Okay.
We just kind of started a relationship that was cool.
Yeah.
But the long story short of that is Phil McMichael, who's on staff here as the pastor of ministries, is best friends with Chris Lovell.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the same week that Chris came back to Texas, the student pastor here was moving somewhere else. And so Phil was looking for a student pastor, calls his buddy Chris, and Chris says, well, I was just hanging out with this guy in Tennessee. You should give him a call. Okay. And then Phil called and started talking about moving to Arkansas.
Gotcha.
And now, rest is history, I guess, you know.
Very cool. So. Very cool. So I guess I don't know how well you can answer this, but what do you think is the most unique thing about, leading a ministry here at the University of Arkansas?
Yeah, I think most unique would be I think the Lord is just doing like an unusual move of God is happening.
Yeah.
Specifically at the University of Arkansas. I think the University of Arkansas is very open and receptive to like just organizations that support Christian values.
Gotcha.
But I think what the Lord's done specifically here at Cross Church has been the most like unusual thing that's happened is like the Lord's just raised up great college students.
Yeah.
And guys like yourself, guys like, the people that all of our dream team and people like the Lord's just gotten a hold of their life. And as a staff, we just get to kind of, in some ways be on the sidelines and cheer you guys on as you guys go do ministry. And so it's just an incredibly unique place where college students are coming here and they're realizing I'm not just here for a degree.
Yeah.
I'm here for something more than that. And that's something I'll, for as long as I'm the college pastor, but even after, I'll never forget. It's been such a blessing, man.
That's cool. Is there, have you seen at other universities it not being as open to, Christian lifestyles or
Yeah, I mean, I think guys I talk to around the country and different people in college ministry world would definitely say that Arkansas, even guys like Steve Shadrack we were talking about earlier, he would tell you, I think, that Arkansas is a unique place that the Lord just kind of placed his hand and blessed ministries here.
Gotcha.
Not that it's not receptive other places, but it just seems like there's something really special going on.
Gotcha.
At Arkansas where all the Christian camps know they got to come here to recruit because there's a group of students here that are really passionate about seeing Jesus impact the university. So I don't necessarily know. I think the university has a lot to do with it, but I think it's the students on campus and their influence, which is becoming, generational.
Yeah.
That has really caused that to happen.
Gotcha. So, we've clearly seen major things happening in this ministry. We're here in this building, which is still undergoing. There are people who are still working on this building every day that I see here.
Right.
But what do you think where do you think we go from here in terms of, C3 ministry and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think we've been on a journey of really just giving our yes to the Lord daily and jumping into areas of serving and those types of things. And we've been across the street in our worship center. And this has kind of been like an anticipated time for a while now. Yeah. Since the news kind of broke. But now I think it's thinking about, okay, now that we're here, I think the Lord's really bringing us a lot of new people. A lot of people who maybe never would have come across the street. Yeah. But now they're seeing the basketball gym downstairs, the coffee shop throughout the week, all these things. They're saying, wow, I think it's just going to give Cross Church and specifically C3 a front door with people in their first few months at college to where we can get creative as a ministry to say, well, what more can we do to utilize this building and this resource? Yeah. And so what does it look like to, do reserve rooms for group projects and for us to create intramural leagues in the gym and do things that are throughout the week that make this place like a home for college students. Yeah. But even just beyond that, just continuing to empower students to do the work of the ministry.
Gotcha.
And so as we get more people, it's not like, all right, let's do more programs as staff leads, but just like, how can we put students in a position to use their gifts that the Lord's given them to influence those people? And I think we're seeing that already this semester. We just had an incredible semester so far this year, but I think it's going to be more of the same with different and new opportunities that some we know and some we don't even know yet. But I'm excited to see what those will be.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so you've been doing this for 5 years now?
Yeah, I'm in my fifth college year.
Fifth college year, okay. So when you started, we were still over there, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So over your 4.5 years or whatever now, do you feel like is there one highlight or one major first thing that comes to your head when people say what's the best part about your job or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think the highlight is the students and the stories within C3 and the people. I think if you're looking for like a memory or something like that, I think, obviously I went through COVID with C3.
Okay.
So I think
I didn't think
I always go back to, we took a break from services for a while.
Okay.
We met in homes all throughout our city, public houses, and did that journey. But then our first semester back, we did social distance services in the worship center across the street in the spring of, I guess that would have been 21, a year after everybody went home.
Okay.
And so we ended that semester with April 28th, and I'll just never forget, like that was a night where we had some testimonies, but then we called people to respond and saw 30-something people get baptized that night. I think it was 32 people got baptized that night.
Wow.
And we had guys that were driving back to campus, having conversations with their friends, being convicted of what the Lord was doing in their life, that they needed to walk in obedience, calling us and driving back to the church to be baptized. So I was in the baptistry till 11:30 that night.
Jeez.
And it was a really cool, like, culminating moment for us, I think, as a staff and as a dream team of like, we'd all been working so hard in that season and trusting the Lord for the future.
Gotcha.
And it was like the last Wednesday of the semester, semester, the Lord just kind of put his hand of favor on us and said like, I'm doing something that you know not of.
Yeah.
And from then on, it's just been this Spirit of the Lord moving in ways we can't really describe, other than just like, he's continued to just blow our minds with what he's doing.
Yeah. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I had heard about that night. I wasn't here then, but I didn't know that people were like driving back.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, it was wild, man.
Okay, so next thing, I want to back up a little bit. Did you feel, I know you said 7th grade was kind of when you felt like you had that call to ministry initially. Yeah. Did you feel, like from that point on, did you feel kind of a calling or or that I've been using with other people is like an obligation to, push, like, did you feel an obligation to step into a role to lead people to the gospel? And was that a sustained kind of thing, or did you kind of feel that in 7th grade and then 3 years later kind of like, I don't know, and then came back to it?
Yeah. I think there was a clear like call. Like I think the Lord has specifically put on my heart to preach and lead, like those things. I tell people all the time, like calling is something that the Lord uniquely gives you, and then he gives you assignments under that God-given calling.
Okay.
And so like in 7th grade, I think I felt the call to lead my peers towards the Lord in some way. Okay. And I wasn't even to a place spiritually really to do that well, but I felt the burden to do it.
Okay.
And that fleshed itself out in a lot of different ways. I remember trying to like launch my own AAU travel basketball team, and I'm just trying to like lead people to join it, and little expressions of like wanting to just lead and make a difference.
Okay.
And so I think it went, throughout middle school and high school and college, like the Lord just gave me opportunities, but then really faithful men in my life who discipled me, called me out on my, stupidity at times, but also gave me opportunities to lead.
Okay.
And I think that was massively crucial. Like the Mark LaFleurs and Carter Collins and Shane Sisks and others of my life that just looked at me and said, hey, I'm going to give you this.
Gotcha.
And it was in those moments where I started to really believe that about myself.
Okay.
And that the Lord was really doing it. And so then now it translates even now to like, you know, looking at C3 students and saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And just like, hey, you can lead, you can do these things.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've experienced too,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So.
Yeah. So I guess in one thing that I kind of like what you said, like, you know, you didn't, maybe at the time in 7th grade, right, you didn't feel like you were in a spiritual, what was the word you used? Like,
Yeah,
you didn't feel like you were like, yeah, like you
really
didn't feel
that,
ready to, I don't know, to take that step right at the time and lead.
Yeah.
I think that is something that personally I feel a lot is,
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know, maybe overstepping might be the word, or like I don't want to tell someone to do something that I'm not doing myself.
Sure.
I feel like hypocrisy is something that I hate to feel.
Yeah, sure.
Myself. How do you overcome that? Or like what is...
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my biggest thing is I feel like I want to get a lot better at that, and
Sure.
I don't know, that it hurts me to try to, when I know that I should be, you know, pushing that, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think I've heard it said, like, you know, people say all the time, like, you can't lead people where you're not at yourself.
Exactly.
But I've also heard another take on that says you can't lead people where you're not willing to go yourself. Okay. It's like I think we're all in progress, right? And like we're always going to be in progress of just like no one's ever going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But I think that the heart behind it is saying like, okay, I want God's best for those around me as well as for myself, and so I'm going to press into the Lord and be dependent upon Him.
Yeah.
And then as the Spirit gives us things, I think He's always going to give us things that we're unqualified and underdeveloped for.
Okay.
Like I think that's the way that He works to stretch us and grow us.
Gotcha.
And so if I'm only walking, like I would have told you, Will, like a year ago, if you would have told me we're going to launch 2 services in C3 and move into a 32,000 square foot college ministry building, I probably would have said, I don't know if I can do that. And I still don't really believe that I can do that. I really do think the Lord has done all of this. And I think that's the place where the greatest formation is had, right? Because we have to fight that fear with faith and trust that the Lord's going to do the work. And we've just got to be faithful in the everyday.
Yeah.
You know? So I think battling that reality of like, at the end of the day, spiritual leadership is really not about you. It's about those that the Lord's entrusted to your care, but ultimately it's about what the Lord wants to do. And so if you're in a position, or if I'm in a position, or whoever's in a position of leadership, the Lord's placed you in that position of leadership as a voice in their life.
Yeah.
And so being willing to be bold in that, I think, is just being faithful to what the Lord puts on your heart. And also praying for those people and knowing them well enough to be able to know what that really looks like.
Okay.
That way you're not just doing whatever it is you want, but you're really just asking the Lord to give it to you.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because, I don't know, like I said, I know that I want to get better in that area, and I know that I should. Like, it's a good thing, right? But I don't know. It's just that has forever been my roadblock, I guess. It's just getting over that feeling of like of that hypocrisy that absolutely overcomes me, I guess. But okay, so yes, so you were talking about just leading people, and my next follow-up, I guess, to that is like, what do you think is the hardest thing, or the culture around us now, especially in college, like with when you're dealing with college students, is pushing a quote-unquote college lifestyle. Honestly, that's a term that I don't like, but partying, drinking, premarital sex, all that kind of stuff. How do you fight that? How do you convince college students that that is not what is best for them?
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately the best defense to that is a good offense of like, we just got to preach the truth and show them Jesus. I think that's what we try to do in C3, is not come down with condemnation that like, hey, you're doing these things and you're walking in sin, but rather being able to point them to Jesus and show what John 10:10 really promises, right? That the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that may have life and have it abundantly. There's an abundant life you can have with Christ.
Yeah.
And that he loves you unconditionally, and that even in the midst of all that partying, all that stuff that you just mentioned in a quote-unquote college lifestyle, even though all that stuff may be there and that you may have experienced that, the Lord saw all of that and willfully went to the cross to die for those things so that you could be reunited with the Lord. And I think it's the power of the truth of the gospel that pulls college students to understand that is far more worth my life than this. And as hard and as like brokenness filled as some of that is in college ministry specifically, it's also the most rewarding like ministry in the world. When you see those light bulbs come on and the wheels start turning of like, no, the Lord really does love me and he has a plan for my life and I can turn from these things and walk in freedom. And you know, thankfully, prayerfully, gratefully, we've gotten to see that over and over again in C3. And stories from this stage of people who've seen that, and it's like Paul says, you know, like he sees that side of life and counts it all rubbish in comparison to knowing Christ. And we're seeing college students really understand that. And I think telling that story and allowing them hearing their peers say that story as well is so much better than me just preaching from a stage, but being able to be in public houses and in relationships with people who've said, man, this is what I had and this is what I now have in Christ. So I think that's the best way that we've seen that come, that battle be won in some instances amongst our crew here.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think personally that I can understand the facts or whatever. Like I can intake all the information, but personally, the thing that really convinces me, I guess, is to see the personal stories and the genuine joy that people have in walking in faith and seeing how that like changes their life on a day-to-day basis. I feel like before I was really taking my faith seriously or really like trusting God and all that He has for me, like I was quicker to I was irritated more easily, just like things like that. Like 4 weeks ago, we had a pipe burst under our sink, and we had an inch of water in our whole living room. I called the maintenance guy. I was freaking out a bit at the beginning, but after that, I mean, I did all I could. They were fixing it, and Tyler and I went to the gym. I was fine, and I feel like before, like just little things like that would ruin my week. Now I gotta sleep, and I got 8 fans in our house. And it's loud, and it's like I don't. Now I feel like it's stuff like that where it's like, okay, it all stems from faith and just trusting that things like this will pass.
Right.
There are bigger things to worry about.
No, for sure.
And I think like you said, like those kind of personal stories, like and the genuine joy that you get from that is the most powerful tool that you have. So I would agree with that. And then, okay, so let's see, give me 1 second. I've been jumping around a little bit. Okay. Yeah, so, alrighty. It's been 4.5 years now, right? You said you've 2 kids, 5 and 2?
Yeah, almost 2.
Almost 2. How long do you think you'll be here? Are you planted here for, the days to come? Or do you have a long-term plan?
Well, I think, I'm here till the Lord tells me otherwise, I think is the plan, right? So, that's how I ended up here. It's how eventually I'm going to get too old for this grind of, nothing happens in college ministry before 10 p.m. it feels like. So eventually I'll age out, but as long as the Lord will have me, I'm going to be more than happy and grateful, for the opportunity to be college pastor here. So, yeah, no, it's been, seriously, will always be one of the greatest blessings of my life, and I'm crazy grateful that I've gotten to, this season's unique, moving into the building, walking through COVID, like there's just been some kind of mountaintops of ministry for me personally, but even for C3 too, that I just share with C3. That's something I'll just always have and always be grateful for.
Yeah. So that's kind of funny. That was one of the things that I was kind of anticipating you saying was like, eventually you'll get too old for college ministry.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, is there something where you're like, if I get to this point, like maybe that's a sign?
Well, there was a girl in C3 got me out in knockout 2 nights ago, twice in a row.
Ooh.
So that broke my confidence pretty significantly. I don't know if that's a sign of things to come. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily that. I think the Lord's really brought us a lot of the staff is younger and they're leading really, really well. So it's really a team thing. It's not really a me thing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I think there's times where just like eventually like age of my kids and stuff is going to make it more interesting in the future. But whenever that time comes, it'll come.
Gotcha.
So.
Has the staff for C3 always been fairly young, or because I know what is like the median age of? Yeah, I mean I'm the oldest
for sure. I'm 30, which is not that old, but it is old for college ministry for sure. But I think the average age of our staff has always kind of been around 25, 26.
Okay, I thought so.
And so even historically, since I've been here, and even before that, the staff has kind of been younger.
Yeah.
And I think it's always good too, because I think there's, even with me being 30, I think there's just a relational, I think the staff connects well with college students, because it's not that we're in the same season, but we're in a few steps ahead season, where we're able to really relate to what it looks like to be walking through the same things, and being able to give advice and talk through, here's where we've struggled or messed up, and also, even seeing college students walk through that and being able to, like we talked about earlier, just them being the voices back into their peers and underclassmen and those sorts of things. So, it's always kind of been that way. It may not always be that way, but that's what the Lord's brought us. It really has just been the Lord bringing people after person after person that's unique to C3, regardless of their age. I think the Lord just brought the right people in the right time.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So.
Okay, well, I guess last question. What is, out of all your time here and in Tennessee and I guess just over your 30 years of life, what would be your overarching kind of life lesson / advice that thing that you've experienced that has been the most influential to you? Kind of everything wrapped into one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. I think the word that comes to mind is surrender, where it's just like, man, life in God's hands is far better than life in your hands. And I think sometimes that's really painful and difficult, but it's always worth it. So I think that would be one thing I would say, just like give your yes to the Lord every day and trust Him with the in-between, and you'll never regret where He takes you. And I think the other thing is like, people are the world, like God's most precious resource, right? Like He didn't die so that we could have 401ks. Like Jesus didn't come on the cross so that we could build careers for ourselves. He died so that we could be reconciled back to Him and then be the ministers of reconciliation to others. And so I think like my story really is a product of so many people investing in a goofball over a period of time, and casting vision for me to believe things I didn't believe about myself, but ultimately believe things about God that I didn't believe about God.
Gotcha.
And it's in those moments that I can be where I'm at now. I'm standing on the shoulders of hundreds of people. And I think like if we can remind ourselves that life really is about people, surrendering to the Lord and then being obedient when He calls us to minister and serve others.
Gotcha.
We won't regret that. I think we will regret the times in which we elevate things over the Lord and things over people. It's like we talked about all the time with like in college ministry, you're not just here to go to college, right? You're here to leverage your life for the gospel and for others while being in college. And I think that's why we say it here, is because this is the preparation season of your life. So if we can get that message here and understand that before we start our careers and raise our families and money and all these things become these big things, then we're going to be able to, walk in that surrender and live for people, because we built the foundation of that in college, where we learned how to be men and women of God who walk in surrender and who are living for others.
Cool.
So, yeah, man.
Very wonderful. Last question, who's your favorite dream teamer?
It's got to be you, dude. It's got to be you.
I didn't set him up. That's
the answer.
That was genuine. So the rest of you guys, sorry.
Sorry, guys.
But yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you to Ben here and the rest of the Cross Church crew for letting us use this incredible camera. The quality on this is going to be, blowing the rest of it out of the water. So thanks to them. And I will see you later. And perfect. Wonderful.
Peace. See y'all.